Thank you. Can you all hear me okay? Yes. Good. I know I don't always get to relay the good news, but I do try to make it in a fun way. Thank you for having me today. I saw that we only had a couple of new individuals. And so when it comes to violations and the MLS, we're just going to kind of give a brief overview of what you're dealing with, what you're working with. I want to answer any questions that anybody may have with regards to violations that you've dealt with or had or received, or possible violations that you see on another listing that a member has added into the MLS database. Your MLS database, and everybody knows what I'm talking about, right? Matrix is where you guys go, where you're looking for listings, where you add your listings, where you're uploading your photos, where you're viewing information about other listings, knowing how to show property, seeing offer of compensation, seeing what the details and the descriptions of those listings are. If you ever look or view a listing and you see that there's inaccuracies on that listing, that would be a violation in the MLS database. That MLS database is a very integral part of your business. If it's not accurate, kept up to date, and completely clear, you can imagine the problems that you may run into trying to use that database to run comps, to get statistics, to be able to show property, to be able to make sure that that property is available still to show to your clients, and understand from those other cooperating brokers and agents that are entering that information in the MLS to make sure that they are clear and that their information is accurate for you to be able to view. And that you don't have to rely on making a phone call to them to make sure that it's in the correct status or to make sure that they have it advertised properly, okay? So data integrity in the MLS is very important. CRMLS takes it very seriously. Your association takes it very seriously. The fines can be pretty stiff if you ignore or if you overlook or you intentionally commit a violation. Now I know most of us don't try to intentionally commit them, so I'm going to go over some of the most often committed violations, plus we're going to kind of review a few things about the violations that you may have some difficulty with. Oops, sorry, that might have been me. Okay. Again, my name is Jeannette Biggs. I'll leave my card and I'll stay after for a little bit as well if any of you have questions after the presentation, but I will give you some time at the end to go through those as well. I need to point at you? No? I just need to click? That's awesome. I like it. Okay. Some of you have seen this map over and over and over again. Some of you have probably seen this information over and over again, but in my world, it never hurts to reinforce it over and over again. So who makes up CRMLS? CRMLS is 70,000 real estate professionals, such as yourself, that access a database that's, they are part of or members of 33 realtor associations. That's CRMLS. Along with CRMLS, you're also a member of CARETS, because CRMLS is a member of CARETS. CARETS is not the food that you eat or the rock that you wear in your hand, but CARETS just stands for California Real Estate Technology Services. And what that is it's a database aggregator. It's not an MLS. It brings data together so that you don't have to go into multiple applications to view all the data that's available to you, meaning listing data. So part of CARETS, that number of real estate professionals increases from 70,000 to 103,000 and up to 45 associations. Why that's important to you, and you can see on the map of the state of California all the areas that are covered. Southern California is the most heavily populated right now, and it's also geographically, I think, the most heavily populated. But we do have access to data across the state. All those real estate professionals and associations are in those blue or yellow areas on that map. And what that means to you is everybody's following the same rules, everybody's getting the same fines, everybody's getting the same enforcement across all 45 associations. So it's not just your association or just CRMLS. It's 45 total, 103,000 agents that are all following the same rules and getting the same violations or fines. And that's not a very good snapshot. My apologies. You might be able to see it up here better. This is the Matrix home screen. So this is your MLS data platform, correct? This is where you're going to add your listings and search for listings, run comps, get CMAs. There were 2 new links that were added onto the home page of Matrix under your external links widget. And those 2 links are my violations and violations reported by me. In July of this year, CRMLS, along with CARETS, implemented a central violation tracking system. Not that that means anything to you other than one of the major concerns that members and brokers had about the MLS database is if I report a violation, which we rely on all of you to report violations because we're not out policing contracts or making sure that data is accurate, except for things that we can detect as inaccuracies. We rely on you as members and agents to report violations on listings that you deem a violation. You're held anonymous. When you report a violation, no one knows that you are the reporting agent on that violation. If you report a violation, when you see a full display of an agent report, there's a blue link down at the bottom. Have you guys all seen that? That says click here if you think there's a violation. When you click that link, you fill out the information and you describe what the violation is. There's no photos. It's in the wrong market area. They have the wrong bedrooms and bathrooms. They're saying that they're going to reduce my commission because this is a short sale and I've got to pay for a short sale negotiator fee. Okay, those are all violations of the MLS database. They can't do that. So when you report those violations, these 2 links on the home page in Matrix, under external links, violations reported by me, that's the tracking system that was implemented so that you can click that link and any of those violations that you reported, you can see the progression as to what occurred for those violations. Now what you'll see in there is if you see currently, because this is a new system that's been implemented, there's some bugs and kinks that we're starting to work through and things that we're tweaking and changing a little bit, is if you ever see ignored in there, it doesn't mean the violation was ignored. That terminology is going to get changed at some point. Read the verbiage below where you see ignored. If you reported a violation, the association that receives that violation for that member will be typing in an explanation as to why that violation is being ignored. Okay, what I deem a violation that I report on somebody, it may not be considered a violation in that with that association. For example, I report that a listing is in the wrong market area. I may not know that market area for that association. And when that association receives the violation, they look at the market area and they deem that it's accurate. They'll ignore the violation and say market area is accurate or correct. So when you click on the link to look at my violations or reported violations, you'll see that kind of information so you can see the follow-up on what's happening. That was one of the #1 reasons why the central violation tracking system was implemented. Agents were concerned that they weren't seeing what happened to a violation that they reported. Okay? #2 is to make sure that enforcement and fining was kept and held to a fair and balanced playing field, and that all those 45 associations were enforcing violations and collecting fines on members that committed violations, and that members were not getting, for example, oh, it's okay that you don't have to pay because I'm going to make someone else pay for their violation. All associations that are part of CRMLS and CARETS are held to a citation compliance policy, and what they have to do is they are responsible to the MLS, which is responsible to CARETS, to enforce those violations and fines. Right now, all of our associations through CRMLS are given what we're calling a learning period. And as of the 1st of the year, you're all going to be starting with a clean slate on your violations. It doesn't mean that your violations don't mean anything right now. But if you do get a violation that you don't agree with, or you don't understand, or you feel that is incorrect, contact your association right away and let them know. Contact West San Gabriel Association. You'll talk to the individual that's enforcing the violations and she'll be able to clarify what it is and why it's there, or deem it not necessary. Make sense? Okay, next slide. Things to remember. Okay, these are things that you can remember and ways to avoid committing violations. Number one thing, how many of you know that you can auto-populate with tax data when you add a listing? Okay, not very many. When you're in the MLS database and you go to add a listing, there's a split screen there. And one of the options is you can start with a blank listing, which means I go in and I fill in all the spaces on my own. Or I can search Realist tax data in the lower half of the screen by selecting the county, inputting the address, street name and number, and or APN, and search the property either way, and it'll pull up Realist tax data for that property. And there's a blue link over to the left that says fill, and when I click that blue link, it auto-populates my listing input form for me. It puts in the APN number, so if you're a little dyslexic like I am, you don't have to worry about getting those numbers mixed up. That would be a violation if you input an inaccurate APN. It also populates square footage, bedrooms, bathrooms, year build, address information, so it actually saves you a lot of typing time as well. Anything that you need to modify with that auto pop, you can modify for whatever reason. Just make sure you're making all your disclosures wherever you need to make your disclosures if you're making changes. Everybody got that? So that's the number one thing to remember. Auto-populate with your tax data. One of the things I want to remind you of when you do that though, tax data will also pull in street number and street name and street suffix. Does everybody know what I mean by street suffix? Yeah. I know it sounds logical, but I couldn't tell you how many occurrences there are in the MLS database where, let's say for example, the address is 123 Main Street. They put 123 in the house number field, and on the street name field, they put Main Street instead of Main, and then street on the suffix field. What that does is it looks good in the database, but if anybody's searching anything on Main, 123 Main, they won't pull it up because they're not looking for Main Street as street being part of the street name. Make sense? Make sure you separate your street name and you put your suffix on the correct field. If any of you need listing input forms, your association can direct you where those listing input forms are. It has all the fields designated out for you in the order that you're going to be inputting into the MLS. You can have that report right there next to you while you're inputting and make sure that you're getting all the correct fields completed. I have agents using those on their listing appointments as well. They take them out on listing appointments so that they make sure they ask all the pertinent questions and they have all the pertinent answers when they're ready to sit down and enter that listing into the database. They can make sure everything's checked and selected. Number two, photos. You are required, according to the rules, to input photos within 5 days on all property types except land and lot. And there's no branding of your photos allowed. That also means I can't take a photo of the property with the for sale sign where I can read all the brokerage information on the for sale sign. That is considered a violation, okay? If the sign is perpendicular in the picture and all I see is the post, but I can't turn or manipulate the picture to read the writing on the sign, that's okay. And when I say your photos, I didn't mean all photos. You have a minimum of 1 photo that's due in the MLS database within 5 days on all property types except for vacant land and lot. We're not going to make you take a picture of the dirt and put it in there. Now, this is just a little word of marketing advice. The 5 days is a great way to avoid a violation. Okay, get it in there with 5 days, at least 1. If you're only putting 1 photo in, it does need to be of the exterior structure. Okay, not the view from the front porch or the pool in the backyard, or I've often seen bathrooms as that very only one. It's 1 photo and it's the bathroom. Okay, no. If you're going to put in 1 photo, it needs to be the exterior structure. Whatever the pretty exterior structure side is, but the entire exterior structure. In other words, it doesn't have to be the front of the property. It can be whatever is the best view of that property, but it has to have the entire exterior structure in it, okay? If you put in more than 1 photo, would it make sense to leave that as the number 1 photo? Yes, it would. And I would highly recommend that you do so, because when that listing within an hour starts going out to all of those IDX feeds, internet data exchange, it feeds where it's going to Realtor.com, LATimes.com, it's going to the other MLSs that are part of Carrots, all those agents that have auto emails set up, it's starting to get fed out to all those auto emails. If you only put one photo in, and in that, or even if you put more in, you want that number one photo to be the structure, I think. There's not a rule against that. If you put in more than one photo, it can be whatever placement you want it in. But it would make more sense, since Realtor.com only pulls one, unless you pay for it to take more, it would make sense for that number one photo to be the structure. Okay? You want to wait 5 days? That's okay. But 45 minutes for your listing to start going out to all those prospects, I think you start cutting yourself short on your marketing potential by not having your photos in right away. Word of advice, it's not against the rules, but word of advice when it comes to marketing, it's best to get those photos in right at the time that you're entering the listing. Okay, at least one. Then you know you won't get a violation and your marketing will be better. Public remarks. The property description on public remarks. Open house, phone numbers, names, websites are not allowed in there. Also, security related information is not allowed in there. On listing input, you will get some warnings if you use words, terminology, or numbers, or series of things in a certain order that could be a potential violation. Doesn't mean it's a violation. It means dependent on the context of how you use that word or numbers could determine whether it's a violation or not. So is the warning going to bother me if I know I used it in the correct manner? No, I can ignore the warning. It doesn't mean I'll get a violation. It's just reminding me, are you sure you're using this in the right context? An example of that would be the word vacant. If I say the property's vacant on property description, which is the public remarks, that would be a violation. That's a security risk. You can't advertise to the public that the property is vacant. But if I said the property is located next door to a vacant lot, I'll get the warning that there's a potential violation, but I read and I understand that by saying that it's located next to a vacant lot is not a security risk or a violation. I'm describing the property. I'm describing its surroundings. Status changes. I'm sorry to say, for 2 years, 3 years running, status changes are still to this day the #1 violation in the database across the board. Part of it's due to the market that you're working in, but you have 2 business days from the date that status changes to make the correction and the change in the MLS database. Is the MLS and the association out policing to see when you're in a deal or not? No, we're not, but other agents are, and they are reporting you if you're in the wrong status. #1 complaint right now, short sales are remaining in the active status instead of going into pending or backup. Pending and active status means that the listing is still available and you're still marketing it on the MLS. But if you have 3 offers, or you have even one fully executed offer, and you're waiting for the bank to come back with the approval on the short sale amount, that's a condition or a contingency of your deal. Okay, that's not to leave the property active. If that's the case, you put it in the backup position, and all agents know it's still active, but now they're going to be going into the backup position. Make sense? Get your statuses changed. Closing listings within 2 business days. And I did get word from the violations department here that I am going to cover auto sell with you, because auto sell seems to be a little bit of a mystery, and we're going to go ahead and go into that as well. Make sure you close your listings. When you change a listing into pending or backup position, you're required to put in the estimated close of escrow date. Okay? Make sure your email addresses on your listing and in Matrix roster are accurate and correct, and you check that email every day. Because Matrix is going to automatically send you reminders 1 week before that auto sell, estimated close, 3 days before, 24 hours before, and the day of. Wow. That you need to get in there and you need to correct it and either push that date out if you haven't closed, or close the listing properly. If you do not close the listing properly, you will get a violation, and that listing will flip into what's called auto sold status. It'll flip to sold with all your estimated information there. There'll be an S and there'll be a little asterisk next to the S. That tells other agents and appraisers that that listing auto sold and you never corrected it and completed the close on it. Okay, and then you don't understand why you're getting a violation. Even if that data is correct and it closed with all that accurate estimated information, you are still required to go in there and physically close it correctly. Okay, so even if you have to go in there and just mark it as closed and put in your closing date and all your concessions and anything else, make sure you do that within 2 business days. Make sense? Any questions on auto sell? Okay. Some of the new changes, I'll make sure that I leave this PowerPoint with Wesley and Gabriel, and you can get any copies of any slides that you need since these are kind of small. One of the changes that came effective in July of this year is the lockbox, the required electronic lockbox rule, 13.6. It has a little bit of a well, not a little bit, it's got a variation to it. NAR this last May brought down a ruling that it was not okay to enforce violations and require electronic lockboxes. Does it benefit you to avoid fines and violations to put on your association's electronic lockbox? Absolutely. Does it secure the property better for your clients and you can keep a track of who's showing that property? Absolutely. Would it benefit you still to put an electronic lockbox, which is Supra, for your association? Yes, it would. But the rule has now changed. You will see there's going to be some combo lockboxes out there now. Agents are allowed to put combo lockboxes on or those digital doorknobs. But the way the rule changed, and I've highlighted the one area down there, access will be scheduled within 4 hours of initial contact. So if you go out and you try to view a listing or you see that a listing has a combo lockbox on it, the agent hasn't given you that information, and it's 12 o'clock noon right now, and I call that agent for access and get that combo, they have 4 hours to get back to me and give me that access information. If they do not do that within 4 hours, you can report them. Now that doesn't count if you call them at midnight and you want them to call you back at 4 a.m. But it does count during business hours. Yes?
Does it apply to REOs also?
Yes, it applies to all listings in the MLS database. REOs, short sales, everything. If they're going to put another type of lockbox device on the property that's approved, which combos and digital doorknobs are okay to put on there, then they're required to respond back to you within 4 hours. If I were an agent, I don't want to have to deal with that because it'll be my luck that I'll be at that barbecue this weekend and I don't want to deal with phone calls and I don't have the information over at the listing office to hand out either. So I'll put a super on there because then I don't have to worry about that 4 hours, right? Okay. It's all about cooperation. And then another rule that was implemented July 15th, there's a new rule, 13.9 removal, which this kind of goes without saying, but apparently at one point there was a problem, which is why rules exist. The lockbox must be removed within 1 day after the close of escrow or expiration cancellation of the listing. Okay, no more leaving the lockboxes on for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and going out later. You have 1 day to get it off of there. Yes?
What if you've got a close of escrow +3 and you want the other agent to have access to that key?
And I would adhere to the rule and make sure you're not going to cause a problem with that. That's a good question. The question was, what if you have a close of escrow +3 and you want to leave the lockbox on there for that agent to get the key? So can all the other agents. But in that instance, you could have your argument and you could probably put in written documentation that your seller wants to leave it on there.
Still, the only one complaining may be the agent on the other side, or when there is a new listing. On this case, the new buyer or the new agent is not complaining, and they're the only ones that know that the lockbox is still there. So it shouldn't be any problem.
Right.
And the most, the time it's close escrow plus 3 days, which you want the transaction done.
That's fine. And like he was saying as well, nobody's going to have a complaint about it unless you still have it active in the MLS and it's still showing that you haven't closed it.
That should be changed on the 3 days instead of the 1.
No, this is actually modeling after CAR's model rules as well. And the reason for that is I think a lot of times lockboxes are being left on properties for extended periods of time afterwards. And even though listings expire or close, agents still have access to lockbox information. So you can still see on a full display, and I think it's a security issue, more so than it's a slap on the wrist. I think it's a security issue for the owner of the property. Yes?
Yes, what happens when somebody takes the key and doesn't put it back and you go to show it? And
That's a violation as well.
What was the question?
If somebody takes the key out of the lockbox and doesn't return it, it's not the agent that's taking the key, although if you use an electronic lockbox, you'll see who was last there. So the last one there has the common sense. But the listing agent is responsible to make sure there's always a key in that lockbox.
But it's not necessary, the last one. Maybe there are two
No, it's
other
not the last
ones,
one.
open it, they find out it's empty.
Yeah.
True. Then call the agent right away. If you don't see a key in the lockbox, call the agent right away. Because that listing agent is responsible to keep the key in the box.
Send a message with your lockbox key.
Yes. Send a message with your lockbox key. Okay, was there any more questions on lockbox? This is good. You guys can ask questions and make comments. I'm not opposed to answering anything. Yes?
Well, if a person, the listing agent is out of town for business or vacation or whatever, and then the key disappears, nobody's there to replace it?
Hopefully that listing, okay, the question was, what if the listing agent is out of town and the key disappears and there's nobody there? Well, hopefully the listing office knows and has a key, the broker or the partner.
Or you can put a chain on the key.
Yeah. I will self-destruct if you walk away with me and the sticker on it. And I'll take you with me. No, I know it's a problem. That's why the rule's there. Yes?
yeah, I usually put 2 lock boxes, one where I put the key in that I have control over, and if somebody takes the key, I know what to do, replace it quick.
Good. Did everybody hear that? He puts 2 lock boxes on the property, and he puts one with the key that he knows where it's at, so he can get quick access to it, or direct someone to it. Anything else? All right, I want to make sure you guys confirm that you have your email address in Matrix Roster, okay? Everybody knows you can go to Add Edit where you add your listings, and below where you add a listing, there's a Modify Roster area. You put in your public ID, which is the first ID that you log into the Matrix platform with. You put in your public ID and you click Edit. And you'll see a contact management link there that you can go in and you can make sure that your email address is correct and all your phone numbers are correct. That's what the system is using to notify you of reminders and violation notifications. Yes?
Do we have any associations that have not joined in the CARETS system? And
No, everybody's part of it.
I-
Any association that's part of CARETS follows the rules. Or do you mean, are there other associations in
like
the
up
state?
in Arrowhead or Crestline or the desert or
They haven't joined yet, no.
Orange County?
Orange County's in there, because Orange County,
But not San Diego County.
San Diego County, you have reciprocal access to, but no, they're not following our rules and they're not in our database yet. You just have a link to access into their data and see their data. And they're a recip agreement as well, so they're to adhere to compensation, offer compensation also. Yes, Tom?
Jeanette, I want to back up to status changes for just a second.
Okay.
I'm sure everyone in this room that's done short sales before has run into this situation. So you have a short sale, it's listed initially as active, your client contacts you and says, I want to see this property, By the time you go in there to look at it, to see which property it is, it's been changed to hold, do not show. You try to contact the agent, they don't call you back, you email them, they don't call you back. A month later, your client contacts you again and says, hey, that listing's active again. Maybe it fell out, something happened. Can I see the listing? You go back in there again, you see it momentarily active for an hour or two. My presumption is so that they can take a screenshot, send it to the lender while they're either double lending it or somebody in their own office is going to be the selling agent, and subsequently after it closes escrow, you find out that in fact that was the case and it is a double-ended situation. This is a major problem. And you have clients that are willing to pay more money for that property, yet they're restricting access to it, and really it's not exposed on the market, but the lender thinks that it is. Because every month during the approval process, they're sending a screenshot with timestamps that shows that it's been active X amount of days, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, throughout the whole approval process. Is that a status violation?
It is a status violation.
It's clear
if
in the history, you can see the timestamp. When you go in, that's how I figured it out. I thought, okay, this is completely wrong. Active, and then 2 hours later, it's to hold, do not show. And the agent will not call you back, will not respond to your email. But if you call them as a buyer, you'll get a call right back.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's how I found out that was.
And that would be an inaccuracy. Yes, that would be an inaccuracy, and that would be a violation in that example. A true example of an agent putting a listing on hold would be the listing's going on hold because of repairs, the seller's going to be out of town, whatever it is that the seller's requesting it to go on hold for, and it means hold, do not show. The property's still an active property, and they're still actively marketing it, but it's just on hold, do not show right now.
So the question is, how do you report that violation?
Report it under the blue link, and then report what the problem is. And I'll have to get with you and get a ruling on that. There's not a specific rule that deals with clicking on back and forth, but it's a true inaccuracy or falsification of information.
Or I've seen backup, and then it says in the agent remarks, not accepting offers anymore. What lender would not want to see a higher offer?
That would be a violation as well, because the true definition of a backup is you are
that at any
accepting.
time there could be a higher offer that kicks yours out, and it's never for sure in a short sale until it closes escrow. He had one go to foreclosure the day before. And other situations where another buyer comes in that's willing to pay more with a legitimate agent, an ethical agent, that actually submits the higher offers to the lender and will kick the other one out.
Unfortunately, there's agents out there that are doing a lot of this.
Am
And
I the only
unless
one
we
that
hear
that
about it,
happens to? No.
even if there isn't a rule, I'm going to share with you guys, even if there isn't a rule specific, if it's falsification or inaccuracy, that's the blanket rule for everything. But if you don't report these situations like Tom's describing, we aren't aware of them. Associations aren't made aware of them so that they can bring forth rules changes and possibly implement something. If there isn't something already, implement something to prevent that and to make a change.
Even if the agent doesn't call you back and won't call you back and won't answer your emails, put that in there too?
Well, there's the cooperation, accessibility and cooperation is all part of it as well. It's a cooperation, is what the MLS, offer of compensation and cooperation. So that's neglecting cooperation.
I find that in short sale.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I have another situation also on the short sale. They list the price much lower, but when the time I call the listing agent, they say, oh, the listing price is not for real. The BPO is much higher, at least 50 grand higher.
Then that's an inaccuracy as well. She's saying that the agent is listing the property at a much lower list price than what it actually is. And that's a falsification as well. The list price should be exactly what the contract states. The MLS just follows your contracts explicitly. So if the contract states and it has a list price, it needs to follow that.
And they want multiple offers.
I'm sorry?
I said they want multiple offers.
Oh, yeah, yeah, in the back.
How much is the violation? Because it's something like 25.
No.
What big deal.
The lowest fine, I know, the question was how much is a violation, are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay, the lowest fine is $100.
Too little.
The next fine, if they ignore it, goes up to $250. If they ignore that, the subsequent violations, they can get up as far as $500, and depending on what tier they're in, $5,000 and higher. It can go up to the max that NAR approves, which is $15,000. Yes, I have 3 minutes, by the way.
Okay, Janet.
Thank you.
There might be 2 or 3 violations on one MLS listing. Are all 3 considered 1 or 3?
Okay, that's a good question, and then we'll go ahead and carry on, and I'll stay after if you have any other questions as well. The question was if there's 2 or 3 violations on one listing, is it counted as 1 or as 3? It's counted as 3 dependent upon when they occur. If I input the listing today and I commit 3 of those violations today, they're considered 1 event and 1 violation. But if I enter the listing today and I input the wrong market area, and then 5 days later I still don't put a photo in, there's 2, and then I don't make a status change when I'm supposed to, there's 3.
And the violation price is how much?
Depending on what tier, it'll start out at 100 or 250, or it'll be 300, 500, or the most egregious fine that you can get, and you won't even get a warning, it'll just come out the gate as $1,000. And that is usually, and I'm just going to share it with you, if you're sharing your lockbox keys
Nailed it.
with anybody, that's an immediate $1,000 fine.
Wow. It should be 5,000.
Okay, so don't share those lockbox keys.
You don't, no warning at all, anything?
No warning. And believe me, they're getting turned in.
Good.
Yes.
I just thought of something, probably wouldn't happen to anyone else because I'm not computer literate and I truly despise this whole thing. So mine would have been a violation because as you're speaking here, I realized that on Friday, I had, should have been moved to sale pending. And I went in to try, actually Thursday, because I went out of town on Thursday afternoon. I went in to try to move it to sale pending because my broker called me and said, hey, don't leave town without making this sale pending because I'm not running back and forth to your listing. And I tried and I couldn't get it. It would not let me do it. And so I said, oh crap, that's okay. And I called him and I said, you have the sale pending sign. I'm not able to do this. But I'm just clicking everything. I've tried this and I'm just stressed out and I've got to go. So I left. Well, on Monday, I'm trying again to do this. When I came back, he's yelling at me. So I finally thought of calling the board. And that's when I then sent the information and they told me they were able to do it. I could not. They just read information on the system that the person I spoke to at the board said, when you come down, we'll go over it. So it just hit me as I'm speaking to you here, that listening to you, wait a minute, I could have been in violation too, because that was since Thursday that I was trying
2 business days
to do it. Okay.
So it's excluding holidays and weekends.
Who's your broker, Marva? Who's that mean?
But that's a good broker. That is a good broker, though, because they know who's ultimately responsible.
Exactly.
All right, I'm going to let you guys go, but I will stay after and answer more questions. Thank you all. Just make sure that you